What is the meaning of life?
Me, personally, I just think that it varies from person to person. There is no real one answer to what the meaning of life is.
There isn't one.
We create our own meaning.
Everyone says that everyone has their own meaning, and there is no meaning that connects us, you know, and my meaning is different than your meaning, which is different than the next person's meaning. And I think there's something depressing about that.
If you think life's meaningless, then what's the point of living?
If we look back at the advent of modernity, anonymity entered here at this point. So imagine this worker on the assembly line. On the assembly line, they have to be this, you know, sort of anonymous functionary. You know, this person who is replaceable, who is doing this repetitive labor over and over and over. And the assembly line itself, you know, it dictated that people were anonymous because they had to be replaceable, you know, so that the system would keep moving in case somebody got sick. You know, we get the Industrial Revolution and people start to move into cities and they're closer together and there's more people around each other and there's this pervasive anonymity everywhere at the same time. So not everyone knows your name. They probably experience themselves as being, you know, less real in that role than when they're at home with their family. They begin to engineer their own self, you know, their own sense of self, their own identity.
How am I not myself?
This notion obviously would create some amount of uncertainty in an individual confronted with engineering themselves. The more engineering that's having to go on within each of the individuals, the more uncertainty people would then have of each other in this environment. And so there is this pervasive uncertainty. We actually form meaning through our relationships with each other, with other people. The more uncertainty we feel about ourselves, about others, the more difficult it is for us to form meaning and significance through our relationships. It seems to me that over the last 50 years or so, we've increasingly moved into something beyond modernity. The shift here to the postmodern world is that people are struggling now to find significance anywhere. It's not just choosing which part of our lives are significant.
And that's because we're confronted with anonymous circumstances everywhere. We confront anonymity to a whole new level now. The anonymous human functionaries of the modern world are kind of being replaced by machines.
So if we take this notion that the meaning of life is relative to each individual, to me that seems perfectly in line with kind of the way I think about the world, and yet there's something very tragic about that. If you look at what people are doing with their lives, and the ultimate meaning of life seems to be found in some very shallow, very surface level things. The meaning of life becomes how much money you have, or how famous you are. And at the same time, all things that are oriented towards fame and celebrity are reactions against anonymity, trying to be known, trying to fight off the anonymity that is pervasive everywhere. When we look to the future, we're going to have to see something different come about, because I don't think that this investment in the surfaces is going to sustain us very long. The world is in crisis now, perhaps more so than ever before, and there is clearly a big shift happening. And if we're to make it through that, it seems to me that we're going to have to start reintegrating significance into our lives, deep level significance. And this sort of ultra-connectedness that we have now gives us an opportunity to do that in a new way, in a way that has never been possible before, where we could reintegrate, all these multiple selves that we have to experience in our everyday lives when we're confronted with anonymous situations. And we could reintegrate them into an integrated self. Maybe we could ground significance then in things that we know produce meaning, in our relationships with others, in our relationships with all living things, in our relationships with the world at large. And if we did that, I can only see positive things happening.